all of those external tools that I depended on for years, it was better for me to parent without them. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking about the dream relationship strategy. It's a workshop I taught about 1.5 years ago. Taught it to both members inside of my group, the League of Extraordinarily Connected Parents, but we also invited those who aren't part of League to come join us for the week. And when I found it a couple of months ago, as I was sorting through some files, I thought, this is good. I'm going to share it on the podcast. So this is day 3 of a 5-day workshop. You've already heard the other 2 on the podcast, or if you haven't heard them, I've already shared them on the podcast. You can go back and listen to them. But today's specifically is dialing in on how do we create the relationship we want with our kids, especially as they get older. But this starts when they're young. This does start when they're 3 and 2 and 5. I don't know why I jumped in that order, but it starts when they're young, all the way up to when they're 23, 24, 25. My son's going to be 24 this year, which is crazy. I don't know how that's possible because I think I'm 24. But anyway, that the relationship that we create with them when they're young is going to set the foundation for when they're older. And we want them to call us. We want them to want to have us be part of their life. And so we want to start noticing how we're showing up and the kind of relationship we're starting to create with our kids when they're little and they're in our house, or when they're teens or tweens, because that impacts the longevity of the relationship. So in this workshop, I'm going to be interacting with a live audience. You're going to hear my sound go up and down a little bit as I turn to write on a whiteboard. And just, you're going to experience what it's like with a live workshop with me. And I can't wait for you to experience it. And this topic is so important because it is the relationship we create with our kids that ultimately will determine if they choose to listen to us, if they want to listen to us. And that's everything when we think about what we want to create for our kids. We want to create an environment where they can thrive. And if we feel like we have something important to offer them, some gems, some truths, some values that we want to pass on to them, we want them to be open to that insight. We want them to be open to listening to us about that. So enjoy the workshop. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe and leave a review for this podcast, I would love it if you had a second to do that. That's how we spread the word about Connect Method Parenting to more people. All right, let's jump into the workshop. I'm going to kick it right off here. On Monday, we talked about the 3 mistakes that you cannot afford to make with your parenting and some components to start to build our irresistible parenting protocol. And so I'm just going to review those very quickly. The first mistake that we can't afford to make with our parenting is thinking thoughts they should have, they could have, they would have, they ought to have known better. I told you that story of the police officer pulling me over and not seeing my registration tags, and the way he was able to set a pretty firm limit with me without making it negative, and how we want to emulate that as parents. And we're talking about that all week. We talk about that in League all of the time. So this is what Connect Method Parenting is about, is being able to set a connective limit. That's the first mistake, because that comes across as judgmental and it triggers their nervous system 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10. And the second mistake that we don't want to make with our parenting is thinking, I really need them to listen. I hope they'll listen, because that creates emotions of scarcity. And we don't want to have emotions of desperate, graspy energy. We want to be like that street performer I talked about on the first day, who was able to gather hundreds of people on a weekday night and had everybody in the crowd thinking, this is where I want to be. This is who I want to listen to. That's what we want with our parenting. That's what we want to have with our kids. And number 3 is the thoughts, I can't do this. I can't figure this out. It's too late for me. I'm not patient, because this creates the emotion of helplessness, hopelessness, and discouragement. And it's very hard to reinvent our parenting, to change things, to shift things, if that's where we're at. And I talked about one truth, that parenting starts in our brain. The reason I'm recapping is because every day we're building up. We're bringing the stuff we talked about the day before and we're moving into today so that we can create something really magnificent as we build on all of these things for our parenting at the end of the week. Tuesday, we talked about parenting sovereignty. And I talked to you about what sovereignty means, how it means to be independent, how it means to self-govern, how it means to be able to have that freedom and that independence and that autonomy. And specifically with parenting, what that means is us being able to learn how to regulate our emotions, our nervous system in a way so that when our kids are melting down or pushing back or having an attitude or just it feels like blatantly not listening to us, we stay in control. We stay calm and connected. We stay with our logical, our prefrontal cortex part of our brain online so that we can show up for our kids in a way that serves them, that allows us to parent, teach, to help them in a way that we, at the end of the day, where that was awesome. I dealt with that so well. And that's what we're building up. And realizing that parenting starts in our brain that we talked about on day one is so important to carry forward. Because if we don't realize that, we are at the effect of everything happening outside of us. Our kids, if they woke up on the right side of the bed, if they decided to pick up when we asked them to, if they did their homework without resisting, all of those things, the toddler didn't have a meltdown. We are at the effect of that if we don't have this parenting sovereignty. So we need to have that. And this is a skill of learning how to regulate our own emotions, calm our own nervous system down. And it's so important. And it begins by us having the realization that it's possible for us. Day 2, when we were talking about parenting sovereignty, I reviewed that parenting starts in our brain. I talked also about this idea that parenting is powered by your emotions. And I also talked about another truth that parenting with connection is the result of practicing beliefs and emotions that create connection. That's what we have to do. So today we are talking about the dream relationship strategy. When I look back on my own journey, but especially as I'm working with moms every day, I see that the core desire, if we rooted it all back, it would be to have a strong, connected relationship. That's one of the core things that we want. So what I'm going to do, why I have my whiteboard behind me today, is I want to have this be interactive. So if you're in a safe place to respond in the Q&A, I can see the comments that are coming up in there. And I want you to just be responding to me. And I'm going to write some things down. And my question is, what do you want more than anything else with your relationship with your child? What do you want? So just pop it in the Q&A. I'm going to write it on the board. We're going to do some interactive things because I want to really bring this to life for us. Okay, I'm seeing more cooperation. Yes. All right, cooperation. I want to be in touch with them. I want to be thinking about what they're thinking and feeling. Oh, so good. Peace, trust. Yes. Peace, trust, in tune with them, understand what's going on with them, mutual respect, honesty, patience. Oh my gosh, these are so good. Communication. Oh my gosh, mutual respect, honesty. This is a big one. We just want them to be honest. Communication, calmer. Yes, you want to feel calm, confident. I want her to tell me her secrets. Oh my gosh, that's so good. I want her to feel safe with me. So good. I want her to choose. Oh, it's a good one. Clear understanding, communication, lots of communication. Think about what that looks like specifically, guys. And you're thinking about communication. Is that conversations at night? Is it them just telling you when they're struggling? I'd get as specific as you can. Okay, choose. I think what you're saying there is choose me, choose to talk to me, choose me. Balance. Yeah. Erin, so when you say balance, can you get even more specific? Does that mean that you have a balanced relationship with all the kids? That mean that the kids feel balanced? I'd love to know more about what that, exactly how you would describe that. So good, you guys. Okay. I wanted us to brainstorm those so you have them at the forefront of your brain, because good relationship, there's so many things. I think if I go back, you can see what it's saying. My messy handwriting. Love it. Okay. Because I want you to have a really clear idea of what does a great relationship mean to you, because what it means to you might be different than what it means to someone else. It's all individualized. It's all to our personal preference. And if we want to create a dream relationship strategy, we want to talk about the things that matter to us. Now, I want you to think about what your current result is. Now, remember, the last few days, we've reminded ourselves as we were building up to this conversation today that we've got to look at what's happening now. What is our current result? What's happening in our relationship right now? Because if we don't know where we are, it's like a map. A map is great, but if you don't know where you are, You will not be able to get directions to where you want to go because the map doesn't have any reference point. There's the destination, but I have no idea how to tell you to get there. When you're doing the Google Maps or the Apple Maps or whatever maps program you're using, they always have to know like from where. So what is your current result right now? This is what we're wanting. And I would love us to be thinking what it is now. And it might just be the opposite of that, but even more specific. I'm going to read some of them that are coming in, but I want you to be thinking, what does this actually look like when I don't have good communication or where I don't have good understanding or where they're not being honest? What does that actually look like in real life? Okay, it's a constant tug of war when it comes time to do homework, go to bed, all of the things. Got it. So what does it look like now? It's a tug of war, right? Is that what you say? That's how I always wrote it, but hopefully I'm right. Okay, battle. It looks like us fighting. Yeah, we're fighting. Fighting with their teenager, it says. Yes. Mealtime is a struggle. Not a lot of talking. Sarcasm. Yes. A lot of you guys are saying similar things. So tug of war, fighting, a struggle. It's always a struggle. Yes. Struggle. Struggle bus. That's what I would say. It feels closed. Okay. A lot of it is very similar. We're wanting this. And what we have right now is the opposite. Okay. So I want us to now that we've gained a lot of awareness, remember what these say. When I was working on this, I was wanting to write today, and the best I could set up is to just show part of my whiteboard because of the way that the camera is or whatever. So this is what we get today. We get part of the whiteboard. So many good comments in here, you guys. So much awareness around where you are right now. Now, what I want you to be thinking, and we're going to go through this exercise, and this is very important, is what are your thoughts about your relationship with your child? Now, I want to invite us all to realize that there's going to be possibly multiple thoughts. Thoughts when things are going great. We're like, everything's wonderful. I love it. I love what's happening. And then when they're not going great. So you can throw out either of them, but I want you to be thinking about the things you're trying to improve. What are your thoughts specifically around those situations? When you're not having the communication, when you're not having the connection, when you're not having the conversations, when we're fighting, when we're struggling, when there's not great cooperation, what are your thoughts about your relationship with your child at that moment? We're going to write those down. Okay, it's strained. The relationship is strained. He's so frustrating. Yes. This is difficult and complicated. There's so much conflict. Okay, I'm writing these down so we can all have them in our faces. Look at them. Everything is fine until I express an expectation or offer a correction. That's so interesting. And these are just sentences flying around in our brains. It's so fascinating to think about, to actually articulate them. So everything is fine unless I express an expectation. I'll write it here. Who can relate to some of these? Yes, that's a good one. I feel that desperate, needy feeling, such a strong desire to make things better that I'm in tears. Yes. I'm going to paraphrase that, Allison. I want to make things better. Yeah. What other thoughts? I don't have the energy to handle this. Yeah. Thanks, Katie. Okay. I know when I tear up, it makes my daughter more mad. Yeah. Almost like another thought, Allison, I've got to hold it together, or another secondary thought, I can't tear up, or this is going to make it worse. Probably like that. This is going to make it worse. If I tear up, this is going to make it worse. Yeah. Okay. There's so many, guys. Lots of them are similar. I try so hard and this always happens. Oh, so good. Who has a similar thought to that one? This always happens. Nothing will get better. It's so prevalent in mom's brains. I'm going to lean so you can see it. And yet it's never going to get us where we want to go, but so good to see. It feels so true. Nothing is going to get better. I don't have energy to deal with this. This is overwhelming. Yeah, that's another one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how true do these feel to you? 10 is totally believable. Yes, this is the only option to think right now. And 1 is, 12. I love it. 12. I'm seeing beyond it. 15. They're so true. Let's see what our other numbers. 15. Oh my gosh, you guys are hilarious. 10. Yes, your brain is just, and we've been talking about this idea that our brain practiced for so many reasons. There is trauma that has happened, not even just capital T trauma, just things that have happened to us that have made us feel a little more nervous or scared, or someone, for example, of what I'm talking about, so you can get a more specific idea of it, is say you were at the park with your kids and somebody made a comment about your child being mean or unkind. They didn't share the shovel in the sandbox. And if for some reason that day your nervous system wasn't able to work through that. Maybe you were already on edge, your nervous system was already a little activated. And when they made that comment, for some reason, your subconscious said not safe. And it created a visceral reaction that you weren't able to work through and release. So in your subconscious brain, there is a little belief that got lodged in there that my kid isn't very kind. Or it could be about the woman. I need to be careful of what other people think. Or it could have been turned towards yourself. Like, I'm not a good mom. I should have taught my kids better. So we have these little situations that happen. It happens to all of us that might have caused us to feel a little bit more nervous or edgy, that gets triggered now when our child is misbehaving, or when we're afraid someone might say something, or when we notice them not doing something and we think it's our fault. So there's trauma. That's why some of these thoughts feel so true there. And that's an example of just a little T trauma, but just something that might have gone unnoticed that we didn't even realize is affecting us still today. There is conditioning, just how the world is. This is how your children should behave. This is how you should be able to show up as a parent. This is how things should go. They should be polite. They should always be nice. They should be responsible. They should clean their room. We have all of these ideas. The kids should never fight. The teenagers should always be respectful. All of these beliefs that are lodged into our subconscious, and it becomes a filter. But either can happen just because of conditioning. It can happen because of a little experience that got our nervous system activated. It can happen just because of how we were raised, our belief system we were raised with, that we interpreted a certain way. So many reasons. And I wanted to emphasize that because these thoughts, they feel real to us, and we want to honor that our nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system, had sympathy on us and decided to have these thoughts in our brain to keep us safe. So please hear me, and do not get to a place where you're beating yourself up for having these beliefs, having these triggers. And I love that you guys were so honest. That's one of the things I love about our group, is that we're just honest, and there's no shame in sharing where we currently are, because we have to know where we are on the map to know how to get to where we want to be. There is no shame in having these thoughts. Here's the cool part, because we know that the root of this, the way we change our parenting, begins internally inside of us, healing our nervous system, recognizing where we have maybe a little triggery response, and validating and loving that part of us and diffusing it, really transmuting it. And we know that these thoughts and these emotions are what's fueling us. We can start to heal it. We can start to change it. So I love and I thank you and honor all of you guys that showed up and put these down and typed them in the Q&A. And we're so vulnerable and honest, because this is how we move forward. The way we're going to move to the next step of where we want to go, if we want to have a dreamy relationship, you can only imagine that if we want to have a dreamy relationship with our kids, and we are thinking thoughts like this, it is going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to switch that, because we are taking things from the past and we're recirculating them in the present, and it's creating the same thing in the future. This is where things get so exciting and so fun. And we have to be patient, because for some of us, it's going to take a little bit of time. Some of you guys will be faster. Some will be slower. I know for me, I've embraced it as this process that I get to go through. Okay, that triggered me today. Let me look at that. Let me see what happened, and let me decide what I want to do about it. So we want to begin to choose new thoughts we believe about our relationships. That's one of the first core strategies in creating a dream relationship, is knowing what we're currently thinking and feeling, knowing how strong it feels in our body, where that is 100% true. And we're, yeah, I see it. And then we validate the heck out of ourselves. We honor our nervous system. We do not beat ourselves up ever about these thoughts. And if we have a tendency to, which I totally have a tendency to, then we continue to work on it. And for some of you, this will be harder than others. Most women have a tendency to beat themselves up, and some are really gentle with themselves. But we're all learning the art of being gentle with ourselves. So we understand where we are. We're so gentle with ourselves. We even honor and thank our nervous system for trying to keep us safe. And then we can choose new thoughts. Now, when coming up with a new thought, it's important to use language that generates the emotion you want to have. I'm going to give you an example. It's like we're a surgeon. We're going in and we're trying to surgically change something. And we want to do it with the proper skills. So let's say right now I get frustrated, and my thought is, I want to stop getting frustrated. That's a new thought. I want to stop getting frustrated. Now, I want you to notice how this feels, and translate it into whatever it is for you. If I want to stop yelling, I want to stop fighting, I want to stop getting triggered, whatever it is. Now, I want you to notice how that feels. For me, it's not a totally pleasant emotion. I vacillate between judgment. I want to stop getting frustrated. Darn, I get frustrated. Like I'll judge myself, or I'll feel a little bit desperate, or I'll feel a little bit hopeless because I haven't been able to before. With every new belief that you're moving towards to create this dreamy relationship with your child, I want you to do a gut check and see, how does that feel in my body? What emotion is coming up? So for me, I want to have a deep, thriving relationship with my child. Now, for me, that feels empowering. There's a possibility in that for me. That's exciting. So there's a different emotion. There's no right or wrong way here, but the point is you've got to do an emotion check every time and see if it feels icky or if it feels really fabulous. And I encourage you to play around with the language and create the emotion you want to have. And sometimes I'll even start there. How do I want to feel about my child? Right now, I'm feeling frustrated. I want to feel even just neutral is a good place to transition to. Or I want to feel curious. And we can go from curious, but then we can go to neutral, or just accepting or allowing, to then understanding or patient or compassion. We can have this little train of bridge emotions that we're moving through. And one really fabulous thing about identifying the emotion is that then my thought that I want to believe and that I'm going to start working on comes a lot easier, because I still end up, if I'm not really focused and really intentional, to trying to push myself, willpower, beat myself up. So I encourage you to play around with the language and make sure that the words that you're saying creates this emotion, or that the emotion that you identify aligns with the words that you want to believe. So you get to believe anything you want to with any words you want, and you get to choose them on purpose. So you use creativity to create inspiration with your thinking. So I want to be an example of what's possible for my kids. I want to show up and be present with my kids. Those are some of the thoughts I love. I want to generate the possibility of creating connective limits, which is what I call when we need to set those boundaries and those rules around things, even set a connective consequence. Typically I don't love using that word just because we associate it with more of a punishment, but create these connective limits and communicate acceptance no matter what. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking and practicing. I'm practicing them so I can create something new, so that I can create something different. I've identified where I am on the map, and now I know where I want to go. So practicing the new thoughts can be like practicing a part in a play. It's going to feel super awkward at first, because you're going to be stepping into a new way of thinking and feeling that's going to feel different than what you felt before, but it's simply a new way of being. So you want to embrace this new way of being, really being embodied belief. And we're practicing that by living as if you are already believing this new thought. When I was giving up corrective parenting, I practiced believing connection teaches more than consequences. I also practiced believing things are not always as they seem to be, because my brain was convinced that the meaning I had placed on the kid's behavior was the truth. And I was, no, things aren't always as they seem to be. Sometimes my brain still would go back the other way, but sometimes I'd be able to watch the kids having an argument and be like, things aren't always as they seem to be. And that would allow me to be curious, and it would help me transition into connection instead of go into correction. Another thought was, I am capable of handling anything my children do, because I had this really strong belief of, I can't do this. I don't know what to do. This is really overwhelming, on and on. So being able to handle anything that the kids did was really powerful for me to practice. I needed that belief because I had the opposite, and I had to practice it. I didn't see this as possible when I first started practicing. I wasn't in total belief when I first started practicing it, but I started living as if it was true. I stepped into the role of the person I wanted to be. I thought those thoughts. I started practicing those emotions, and I started trying to act from those feelings. And sometimes it was just me visualizing it in my head ahead of time, maybe thinking, okay, the kids are probably going to fight and be sarcastic today and not be kind. Let me just think ahead of what I'm going to think and feel about that. Or sometimes it was in retrospect when I had just either had not a great interaction with the kids, and I would be like, okay, that was really interesting. Let me step into the role of who I want to be and see what happens. And I will never forget the time when I walked into the kids fighting and I was able to step into my parenting sovereignty, be independent and free, and was able to stay compassionate and firm with my kids, set a limit without losing control. And I had stepped into being the mom I had practiced being. It was a very strange experience. I had become a new version of me. I believed that my parenting was better without punishments and rewards. I stepped into that belief finally because it had been hard for me to let that go. So I believed in this moment, all of those external tools that I depended on for years, it was better for me to parent without them. And I had chosen to believe it. And now I did believe it in that moment. And I began to start parenting differently. I was not perfect. I did not get it right every time. And still, even today, new things will happen as my kids get older. There's new things that they bring up and I'm, wow, I got to revisit this. It's like going to the gym. We have to go to the gym consistently if we want to maintain a level of muscle tone, of ability. We have to do the same thing with our parenting. If we don't continue to do this work, then it will slip back into the old ways. And it does get easier, just like someone who's hit a certain level of physical capability. Even if they take a couple of weeks off, they're going to be able to come back at a different level than they were when they first started if they hadn't done anything. Does that make sense? Okay, so the way to do this is to access the prefrontal cortex of our brain and use our humanness to manage our thoughts. This is how we're going to be rehearsing new thoughts, feelings, and actions. And I want you to remember that we are the only species who can think about our thinking. We can direct our minds, guys. Remember this. So we can imagine, we can visualize ourselves believing what we want to believe in order to get the result we want to get. And I want you to think about what you will be willing to think and feel. You're studying for that part. You're preparing for the upcoming performance in the play. You're that person. And as that person, how do you think, feel, and act? That is a really powerful way to think ahead of time, of getting yourself in the habit of knowing how to do this work of creating something new in the future. It's work. It takes a little bit of effort. It's not difficult. It's not impossible, but it does take effort. Okay. As that, who are you? What matters to you? And I want you to do this. We might even stop right now and do that. And what is this future situation with your goal accomplished looking like? So these are huge. Who are you? What matters to you? And what is the future? Okay. I'm going to go back to our list here. And we're going to do a little bit of tweaking. We're going to interact again. I want you to think about how we could change some of these thoughts that you guys offered to me so that you could feel one step closer to becoming more connected, less triggered, changing the belief. And I have to say, for those who are visiting, I apologize. There's more levels in this to understand the child's nervous system and the behavior that we dive into League. For those who are in League here, you know what I'm talking about. This re-education of ourselves to understand what is behavior and the way that our kids' nervous systems are triggering them, even just how their immature brains are impacting the way they're responding and reacting. That is a review for those who are in League. There's so many things that we've lost culturally when they've studied the indigenous cultures, some in Canada and some in South America, and looking at the way they parented their kids. They have retained the knowledge is just coming back to Western society through developmental psychology of what the tantrum means, why the child's crying. And they make it mean something totally different. There's a story of a 3-year-old throwing a huge temper tantrum on the floor. And the woman basically was saying, I get that her body is working through this emotion. I'm not making it a problem. I'm just going to keep her safe, make sure she's not hurting anybody. And I have full confidence that she's going to recover from this. And even though they might not have the scientific terms, they have the intuition. They're intuitive to how the body works and grows and matures. So they're like, oh, the way you get better at feeling an emotion is letting someone feel the emotion, not telling them to stop feeling that emotion. Think about yourself when we're worked up about something. If another adult came up to us and was like, stop crying, stop making such a big deal about it. For most of us, we would be triggered right back at them. What? Do you not see me? This is really hard for me. We don't settle down our emotions by having someone tell us to stop crying. We calm down emotionally when we feel safe. So that is one of the goals that we have as a parent, to redefine what the kid's behavior means and why they're doing it so that we can feel more calm and confident. So if they're being sarcastic, if they're pushing back, if they're being difficult, if they're throwing a tantrum, that we can see it through the lens of what's really happening inside of their body so that we can show up not triggered, but very kind and open-armed, so to speak, of just, hey, get this. And you might need to set a limit. So with that little tangent that I wasn't expecting to go on today, but I wanted to make sure everyone was on the same-ish page, I want us to think about these thoughts that we've been having. in our brains. Everyone in the chat was, yes, I have all of these. And I want us to think about what we could believe instead. Even if this is a stretch, and I don't understand why I would think that, how that would be helpful, I want to reassure you that anytime you help your child feel safe, you help them feel seen and heard, you help their nervous system calm down, then their highest thinking, their prefrontal cortex, it comes back online, and you're going to be able to work through the situation so much smoother. So I'm going to do my best to dive into even more nuances of this later, maybe tomorrow. But for today, how would changing this thought, how would it change your interpretation of the situation? So instead of it's strained, maybe, and if you guys want to type in here, okay, maybe it's they're struggling. So instead of the relationship is strained, my child is struggling right now. So if they're being difficult, if they're being rude or mean or inconsiderate to their siblings, they're struggling. It's their SOS. Hey, I can't figure this out. I am completely out of emotional regulation. I am not in any place to do this. Can you help me? That's what their highest self is sending out. Their body is sending out a lot of emotions and maybe fighting, arguing, screaming. But if we can believe, oh, he is struggling right now. So anybody who wants to type in there, how would that feel? You go into a situation, it can be different depending on what ages your kids are, how many you have, or what they're struggling with. But you go in and instead of this is strained, this is hard, oh, he's struggling right now. How does that feel different in your body? Let's see what you guys said. I love that. Janae, my child is doing the hard work of growing up. I'm honored to be here to help. Mic drop, boom. I love that one. But think about if our kids are fighting, if they're pushing back on their homework, if they're not getting up in the morning. Janae, your comment is perfect if they're having a big emotional reaction, because that really is the work of growing up. That really is how they learn to be more emotionally intelligent, is not being intelligent. Like the way we learn to ride a bike is by riding the bike and falling down over and over and over again. And the way we learn to get better at our emotions is experiencing the emotions, having them become too big and too much for us, melting down. So I love that for that. I'm honored to help. And then you want to help. He's doing his best. I love that one. I love that one, Jana. That's my favorite. Allison, I want to help. Yeah, it feels so different. Janae, purposeful rather than helpless, focused on them rather than me. It's interesting when we're triggered, we are almost incapable of focusing on them because our brain is in our body and our emotions and our nervous system's triggered, our thinking goes down. So it feels so different. Okay, so he's so frustrating. It could really be the same thing. He's struggling right now. So I don't even know if we need to change it. And I love what you said. My child is doing the hard work of growing up. So good. Okay. He's doing his best. This is difficult and complicated. I love he's doing his best too. I'm going to write it right here. Doing his best. So awesome. So much better. We're going to get really clear on the emotions. Think about what it feels like in your body. Okay. This is difficult and complicated. What's a thought we could switch out for that would feel so much better? Because remember, if the emotions are the fuel, they're the thing that are moving the action forward. We want to have really good fuel. So what did I just erase? I want to Control Z. I can't even remember. If you guys remember what I just erased, I got thinking about something totally different. Let's go to the next one. There is so much conflict. Let's do that one. There's so much conflict. How could we think differently about this one? There's so much conflict. The one who typed it in, how could you switch it? Or anybody else? This is a tricky one, a mind bender. We're thinking there's so much conflict. The emotion might be frustration. It might be overwhelm. It might be helplessness, depending on where you are. So there's so much conflict. Could be changed into, I'm learning how to notice what I feel when the conflict comes up. That's the first step, allowing. So I'm allowing myself to notice it without judging. And then how is it okay? What is this telling me? Is a question I sometimes ask myself. If there's so much conflict, what is this telling me? Or I'm learning how to help the situation. Question, what do my children need? So if my brain is, there's so much conflict, I don't know what to do. Then I'm going into one of the things I said to avoid. One of the mistakes to avoid is going into I don't know mode. So if we can ask ourselves when we hear ourselves going, I don't know what to do. I'm so overwhelmed. I have no idea. Going into what do they need? Or what do I need? Or how are they not feeling safe? Or how can I help them right now? So instead of a wall goes up, and you see what we're doing, we're going to go through all of these. And I'm not expecting us to instantly believe them, but I want you to realize the difference that it would have if we were able to think about the situation in a different way, how much more empowering that would be for us and how much more creative and intelligent we would be to problem solve it and actually figure out how to work through it. Let's say a basketball team, after they've played a game, they watch the tape. I've heard they do this. I believe they do this. They watch the tape, or a football team or whoever, of the game. And the coach is going through and being like, okay, when this happened, how could we have done something different? How could we have done a better job? What play could we have run? And then they improve. They make decisions and they keep improving. And this is what we're doing. We're looking at the past tapes and we're okay, this is fine that we thought that a wall went up, but what did that create for us? It probably created something where we were pulling back a little bit. We were thinking things should be different. We were not at our most authentic, compassionate self. So it's really never going to get us this dream relationship. So instead of the wall goes up, how can I connect with my child? Or what do they need right now? We could go back to that. Or this is really interesting information that they're pushing back on me right now. Or how can I just forgive? Maybe we have a little bit of frustration in our heart. How can I forgive? So we might say that. How could I just be okay with where they are right now? Okay, we're going to go through 2 more. Nothing will get better. That's a common one. You guys are saying 15 out of 10, if you believed it. When you think that, it's a helpless, hopeless, victim, stuck energy. And no huge, momentous breakthroughs are going to happen from that. Nothing's going to get better. Can go to, I'm learning so much about myself. I'm learning what my child needs. How does that feel? And this is overwhelming. What if your thought was, I got this. I can figure this out. What if your thought was that? How would that change things for you? Now, here's your assignment for today. As you're thinking about your dream relationship strategy, we started a lot of the work here on the call today, but I want you to go home and finish it so you can come back tomorrow and we can take this to the next level. I want you to think about one situation where the relationship isn't peachy, where you're not satisfied. I want you to write down all of the thoughts you have about the situation. We did random, all kinds of thoughts, all of our thoughts together, but I want it to just be your thoughts about the situation. Then I want you to thank yourself, close your eyes, and I want you to really thank your body for trying to protect you by coming up with all of these thoughts about this situation. Truly, that's what's happened. Your sympathetic nervous system, for one reason or another, and it doesn't really matter why, has come up with an idea that it needs to protect you because you're not safe from this situation when your child does this or when you feel this emotion, when they're sarcastic, when they're not doing their homework, when bedtime's going too long. Your nervous system has said, this is a problem for her. She's getting elevated in her emotions and her heart rate's raising and whatever the indicators are in the nervous system is go into protection mode. We need to help her survive this situation. And I want us to honor the amazing bodies that we have, the incredible nervous system we have, make such good friends with it, welcome it in, and say, thank you. Thank you, body, for trying to keep me safe. Thank you for coming up with this plan to help me survive these situations that feel rough. And then I want you to get present to the situation and write down all of our thoughts. And we're going to explore that. And then this is the affirm, the A part of peace. We're going to affirm and validate and thank with so much gratitude our body for what it's done. And then you guys, we're going to create. This is how we become this connected parent. It's this whole body experience. It's not just the things we do. It's who we are being. So then I want you to go in and look at the old thoughts and change them. I can see how that wouldn't help me. What could I believe instead? And I want you to start to change and transfer, even if it's not believable, even if your brain is fighting you, that's not even true. I want you to see what you can create from the possibilities, the new role you're casting yourself for, the way you're going to be as this parent. We're learning a new part in a play. So I want you to get really clear on that. You are the person who is thinking this. If you're thinking about it in that way, how is that viscerally feeling in your body? And this is very different than being skeptical. When you believe it's possible to be that person. If you believe you will always be the old version, you can't help but be frustrated, you're going to not get anywhere. You need to keep practicing and rehearsing this new energy, this new belief, being this new kind of parent. It's a specific process of believing new thoughts. You don't just visualize the action, you visualize the thinking and the believing. So we're taking all of it. We're thinking about the thoughts that are going through our head, the emotions that are coming through our body, and the actions that we're taking as well. And the emotions and actions are connected to the beliefs. So think of a situation, create a sentence or a couple of sentences, transmute the sentences, transform the sentences visualize, practice it, and come tomorrow and we'll pick up this conversation. Also want you to get really clear once you come up with the sentences, how that feels in your body versus how it felt before. Okay. That is your assignment. Thank you everyone for coming today. Can't wait to pick it up again tomorrow. Oh, you guys are so nice. You're so welcome. Do the homework. The stuff I've talked about every day is building, so we can create something amazing for you by the end. All right. Have a beautiful day. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Thanks so much for listening, you all. If you are ready to learn more about Connect Method Parenting, if you've been listening to the podcast and you think, ooh, I'd love to be able to implement this in my life and with my parenting more, then check out Pivot. It's my 8-week program where we deep dive into learning and implementing Connect Method Parenting so that you can take this information and transform your parenting journey. Head over to connectmethodparenting.com to find out when the next group starts.